We are live, guys. Welcome back to the Diaspora channel. I'm Bayayi'S, and I'm so excited tonight because I have one of my favorite couples right here with me, and they're going to share a lot that will bless the youth, that will bless the singles out there, and the married ones. So stay tuned. Make sure you share this stream right now and give it a thumbs up so we get this rolling. Salut tout le monde, bienvenue sur ma chaîne. J'espère que vous allez tous bien. Je m'appelle Bayayi'S. Merci une fois encore d'être ici avec moi ce soir. J'ai un couple vraiment formidable avec moi ce soir. Ils s'appellent les Bayayi'S. Ils vont nous parler plus de leurs expériences en tant que couple chrétien, partager les expériences avec nous en tant que parents et puis nous donner aussi des conseils concernant ce qu'on peut faire avec nos enfants parce que maintenant on sait que tout se passe en ligne. So welcome the Bayayi'S and thanks for joining me tonight.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. So please introduce.
Okay, well, she's just disappeared from our screen, but my name is Farai. This is
Efia.
We are the Bayayi'S, and so good to be on the platform. Good to see you guys, and yeah, we're going to look like we're taking over the show. This is Team Bayayi show now, okay. And so I'm gonna tell some jokes, and then my wife is.
Well, you need to tell them more about yourself, like what you do and stuff.
Okay, I am a human. Okay, all right. So one of the first questions she was going to ask was, how did we meet?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I want you to answer that, and then we can.
Okay.
Yeah, how did we meet, love?
So we met in church.
Yep. Is that it? That's such a dry.
That's it.
Okay, I'll tell you what happened. My sister and my wife were friends. So my sister invited me to the church we were going to at the time, and I met her through that friendship. And so I wasn't that way inclined. I wasn't thinking about relationships. I just come from a horrible lifestyle into serving God, into the church. And from what I remember, she went to my mum's house. Efia came with my sister, and she saw a photo of me on the frame, and she prayed over the photo. Some witchcraft, some juju, saying this man. Okay. And I remember foaming at the mouth and shaking, and I said, I know I'm going to marry this woman.
Okay,
and I didn't know why.
We met church.
This is some
Ghanaian
witchcraft.
No, so the truth is, he got saved. I was saved from the age of 15, and I was in church, and then Farai got saved. I think, was it 2 years after?
2003.
2 years later. Farai got saved.
Shouldn't have told him your age.
And he'd met, and he was introduced to church by his sister, gave his life to Christ, and the rest is history. So we got married young.
Yeah.
I was 18, and this December we would have been married for
15 years. 15 years this December, which is a madness.
Yeah, that's right.
Help me.
Yeah, so that's
the story of how we met. You've disappeared again. Is it the way it's meant to be?
Yes, yes. By the way, guys, this is my pastor and his wife. Beautiful couples. And I say, you know what? I share my testimony with you guys a few weeks back. So this is just the right time to let you know the people behind the scene when it comes to me before I went to these are the people apart from my blood family. This is my church family that I told you guys about. So I'm so happy that they are here today. You can see them. You can see how how beautiful they look so beautiful, and they will share a lot with you guys today. That's why they are here. We know it's homeschooling season, so the team Bayayi is here to break all that down for you guys. So Efia,
homeschooling. Okay, so we have 3 children. Our children are aged 7, 5, and 3, and they've never been to school. They've always been homeschooled. I actually was inspired by a friend of mine regarding homeschooling before I even had children. I remember meeting her with her children, and I was just so impressed. by them. They just were they were very advanced, they were very confident, and socially they had so much emotional and social intelligence, and I thought this is fantastic. And so when I got talking to her and she explained that she homeschools, I thought this is this is something that I would love to do. And my then pastor's wife, I remember she was an assistant head teacher, and she actually left her profession in order to really take time out to invest in her children. And I remember her making the statement that for years she felt like, here I am invested in other people's children, who's invested in mine? And that led her to to give up her career essentially. And that's what I ended up doing years later. So I was actually a teacher. I taught secondary school and sixth form, GCSE and A-level. I did so for 8 years prior to going into homeschooling full time. And I remember coming to a point where I totally understood and resonated with where she was coming from in terms of, here I am invested in other people's children. I want to invest in mine. And I'm so glad that I made that decision. I remember when I spoke to Fry about homeschooling, he had just heard a sermon by a pastor called Pastor Vodi. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And so he was already sold on the idea of homeschooling, but for different reasons. And I'll pass over to him to share that. But yeah,
I don't remember. And it was probably a very good sermon, but I have no idea what his reasons were. But in hindsight, now that we're 7 years into it, just seeing the fruit of that, there's something definitely powerful about the way families are now has totally changed from the way families used to be. A typical family, if both parents are in the home, right? A typical family, dad and mum need to work, especially in this country, depending on your socio-economical background and all that kind of stuff. Both parents need to go work. And so what happens with the kids? They get dropped off at this place and that place, and then from that they go into a school, and then from a school to college. And so the interaction between parent and child is usually limited to dinner time, bedtime, and that's even if those moments are even sacred in the home, right? In some dinner times, people just go straight to their bedrooms with their plate and just watch TV and eat. Some people eat together, but they're watching TV. Seldom do you see a family sit down on a table, no gadgets, and spend time with each other, talk, how was your day, and all that kind of stuff. And so the development of a child in the crucial 8 years, which is I think 0 to 7 or 0 to 6, the parents just, through no fault of their own, bear in mind, they're just not around. They can't be. It's difficult. And so the pace at which the child learns is not based on how smart or intelligent that child is. The pace at which the child learns is based on the curriculum of the school and the dynamics of the classroom and the type of school that they're going to. And so homeschooling, it's not something that we say everyone should do it. We're just saying that there's pros and cons in both. For us, we decided to go that way, and we've seen the fruit. Yeah. Because by the God's grace, we've been in a very fortunate position, and you can hear the children maybe that we have been able to do it. And so yeah.
And I think as well, picking up on what Fry said about the going at the pace. When you are homeschool, you are the one that determines the curriculum, and that curriculum is designed around your child. And so you can go at their pace. You can go as fast as they need to. You can go as slow as they need to. On various topics and so on. And at the same time, you can control the influences that they have as well. And that's really important for us, especially when it comes to the development of their character. And in terms of the dynamics of the classroom, I experienced that firsthand. I'd be teaching, you have a class of, let's say on average, about 25 students or children, pupils, and you have so many needs in that class. You have English as an additional language, behavior management, special educational needs. You have ridiculous targets that you're trying to meet. So to be able to adequately meet the needs of that child and stretch them in the way that is best for them, it doesn't happen to most children. So essentially the curriculum caters to the average you know, rather than those who are above average and those who are below average. You're kind of just, you end up ticking boxes. And I feel like the quality of learning it can be compromised. But I think you also had like spiritual convictions as like regarding
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I was coming across some material that people were sending and mentioning, where I just saw some of the things that they were teaching, especially young people. I mean, all throughout societies, if you ever want to steer the direction of a society, you always start with the children. So you put into them what your agenda is and what your beliefs are, and as they grow up, it's part of them. Hitler said the same thing. He said, "You know what? We're after your young. We're after young people." Marilyn Manson, that rock guitarist, same thing. We're after the young people, and so you have to be aware that the world that we live in now, there are people with agendas that have access to the school system. I'm not talking about every society and every school, but it's a reality. It is what it is. And so I was coming across material. I was like, I don't want my child learning that. And if they do need to learn that, I want them to learn that from me. I want to be able to explain that from my perspective, and what's right, not from this weird anything goes kind of liberal perspective. We believe in solid truths. 2 + 2 is always 4. It's not 5 because you feel like it's 5. It's, and so part of the reason, not the whole reason, was just trying to just get our children raised in a manner that is a benefit to them and their thinking. The criticism to that, or the backlash to that, could, well, you're wrapping them around with bubble wrap and protecting them. The real world is out there. They need to experience it for themselves and see it for themselves. And I would say that's probably part of the con of homeschooling, in one hand. And the other hand, I would say, we've involved them in so much activities outside of them being in the house. They interact with so many people who don't think like us, who have other mindsets, and that they have to deal with that, and develop as people with us. So we purposely put them in this class and this lesson, and or have them around these people. So it's not just church and a home; it's society in general. But this is something that we feel very strongly about, because trust me, if you don't know it, then let this be a warning to you, especially if you're a parent. Your children can very easily be indoctrinated and you won't even know about it. If you have your children at school, praise God, they're in an environment where they're learning, but just be on top of their work. Okay, what did you learn today? What books have they asked you to read? What do they say about this subject? And then you can then add your values on top of that to help them see the way things should be.
And I think relationships are so important as well, because as what Fry was saying, they spend the majority of their time in the school, and so it can be very easy to kind of lose track of what's happening. I remember teaching, and I had students who, for example, had abortions, and I know as the teacher, and their parents have no idea, and I was under legal obligation not to be able to communicate that to their parents.
And how old were these kids?
Range
from,
I mean, secondary school is from 10, 11 to...
No, I mean, like, what's the youngest age of an abortion case that you've heard? If you can remember.
From, I think, probably year 8, so maybe be like 11, 12.
So did you hear that? An 11 or 12-year-old would have an abortion and the teachers won't tell you.
Yeah. So, but and that's the law, I think as well, one of the things that is very important to us, especially with Fry being a pastor and myself, I run a business. We're very keen about our children being leaders in society. We're very keen about things like generational wealth, and that sort of thing. And in schools they teach you how to write CVs, but they won't necessarily teach you how to write a business plan. And so
come on, girl.
So again, that's being able to and teach them like financial literacy, business skills, you know, things that are going to really equip them in life in a very practical way is also very important to us. Yeah, so that they can be leaders in society. Yeah.
That's, you know, one thing I love about your story, Efia, one coming on and off. Oh yeah, let's try it again. Let me see. So yeah, Efia, you kept yourself till marriage. How did you manage to do that?
As a virgin, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, so
Don't move, Mr. Bayayi. You know, it's so important that the young girls out there understand that this is possible, is doable. So, Mrs. Bayayi, please, you know, share with us, how did you manage to do that?
So I think one of the things from a young age, I think I got saved at the age of 15, and I remember reading a lot of books and filling myself with a lot of material, whether it was sermons, books, music, and that sort of thing, that really champions the message that I am valuable, I am worth something. And so I just had a very strong sense of self-worth, because of, you know, the God that made me. And I remember, you know, and the thing is, when you're saved, you are different. You do stand out. You are definitely, what's it called? You stand out from your peers, and that's what happened when I was at school, when I was at college, sixth form college. I stood out. I was different, the way that I carried myself from the other girls. And what then happens is that you do actually have young guys who are attracted to that. They're attracted to you know, that sense of, this girl is not like the other girls, you know. And I just and I think that's something that's really important, especially if you're a young Christian girl, to know that, you know, that's something that the devil can really kind of use as a way to kind of, you know, pull you. But I definitely was like, I know who I am in Christ. I know that I'm worth something. I know that I'm valuable, and I'm just not willing to give this up to just any guy that's ready to be like, yeah, you get me, you know, because I just set standards, and I decided that I was going to stick with those standards. I remember hearing an illustration that really stuck with me, and it was, you know, imagine you're at the altar, and you know, you're there and you're saying, you know, I give my life to you, in set my heart to you. I'm looking forward to spending the rest of my life, you know, with you. And your spouse is at the altar and is also saying, I do as well. But then they've got a chain of people that they are holding hands to. And that chain of people are people that they have somehow been intimate with.
Yeah, I can't hear you guys. I don't know if it's something to do with the mic.
Oh, can you hear us now? Hello, can you hear us? Okay, I want to assume that everyone can hear us until we said otherwise. So, babes, continue your story. Yeah.
So imagine you're at the altar and you're connected to that person, but then that person is also chained and linked to these other people that they've been intimate with. And essentially, that is what happens, because every time that you're intimate with somebody, every time you have sex with someone, you leave a part of yourself with that person. There is a transaction that happens emotionally, physically, and spiritually, and that has lasting implications. Even once you get saved, even when you know the blood of Jesus covers all sins, and absolutely you can be forgiven. and you can have a fresh start and a new start in Christ. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to deal with the consequences of decisions that you've made. And I didn't want that to be my story. You know, I didn't want to have to deal with unnecessary baggage. And so I just felt like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'd made a decision, I set standards, and I stuck with it. And yeah, I'm glad I did.
Okay, well, I'm going to kind of chime in on this, but I would appreciate it if someone could just put in a comment just to let us know that you can hear us. Otherwise, so it's going to be you're not gonna hear anything. And so, okay, praise God. Okay, yeah. I mean, for me, I wasn't a virgin when I got married. I did the exact opposite of what my wife had done. But the grace of God really did cover all of that. But this is the thing. This is just going back to the homeschooling thing. The school does not tell you the consequences of sex outside of marriage. They just tell you what to do. Hey, listen, if you're going to do it, take this and use this and be careful of this. But they don't tell you about what happens behind the scenes and how your body changes as a result, especially if you keep doing it over and over again. They don't tell you about oxytocin that's released when a mother is bonding with her baby and she's looking at that baby and the baby's breastfeeding. A chemical is released in the mother's brain called oxytocin, which bonds the baby and the mum together. That's why mums, hey, listen, they'll fight you, they'll fight you for their children. And that same chemical is released during sex. It's what's used to bond the two people together. And God says the two shall become one flesh. Okay, so this is where the whole concept comes from. It's the way God designed us. But what happens is someone then says, you know what, I don't want to be with this person anymore. They smell funny, or they don't like jollof, or I don't know, whatever other excuse. And so they go off and find someone else. So now they're trying to bond with this new person. The same chemical is released, but less of it is released. Because your body already is assuming that you found the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, and we don't need as much as this. The bonding system has already happened, and then you go on and on and on and on. Eventually, little oxytocin is released. This is why some people, no matter how beautiful their partners is, no matter how nice their partners are never satisfied. They're always trying to get back that original feeling. It's almost like a drug. You smoke something for the first time. I used to smoke weed, and so with the first few weeks I did it, it was an amazing experience. Don't do drugs, kids. But over a period of time, I couldn't get back to that original feeling. And this is why some people face issues and troubles in marriage. Even when they find the person that they want to spend the rest of their life with and bond with, there isn't enough in them left to give to that bonding process. And so you won't hear that. This is science, by the way. This isn't Bible. I believe in, but you won't hear that in the schools. You just don't. So this is why we need to educate ourselves and then pass that knowledge on to our children, who passes it on to them, and so forth and so forth. But yeah, it was something I had to deal with as a as a newly saved or Christian man. So
I think when you do things the right way, you never have regrets. There's nothing I regret. I gained, and so I'm very pleased that I made that decision.
My guy, boom. See you there.
And it's so encouraging for the young girls out there to know that you can actually keep yourself for yourself, and once the right person comes, then you know that they deserve the gifts God gave you to give to them, basically. So that's why I love that part of your story. So Efia, before you start your own business, I know you were a teacher before starting your own business. So can you talk to us what actually motivated you in the first place to start your own business?
Okay, so I went on maternity leave with my first son, who's now 7, and I remember being at home and feeling like I really would like to be able to spend more time with my child. I felt like I want to own my time. I want to determine my schedule. I don't want to have that dictated to me. And that is when I made the decision to register my company. So I deal with wedding decor and styling. I'm a florist. And so my company is called Afmino Events. And prior to actually running it as a business, I was always doing it for friends and family. It was a hobby. Once we got married, our wedding, as I said, we got married young and we had no money. So everything was DIY. And after that, literally I kind of just became the go-to for friends and family when it came to weddings and event styling. And so I developed it as a hobby. And when I was on maternity leave, I sat down, I thought, what exactly do I already have in my hands? What do I have in my hands that I can use? And I thought, yeah, I already do this. Let me register it as a business and let me try to start running it as a business. And that's what I did. Now, it wasn't an overnight thing. So after maternity leave, I went back to work after 9 months. And then I was running the business whilst also teaching. And when I went on maternity leave for my second son, I continued to pump into the business again. And then by the time I had my daughter, and so we're talking after a period of about, let's say, 4 years, that was when I went full time into the business. So it was a gradual thing.
Okay, interesting. As wife first, mother, and a business owner, how do you maintain a work-life balance? I would love to to know how you share with us.
Maintain a work-life balance. Okay, I think I'd say I'm a very organized person. I'm a very organized person, and I'm very disciplined with my time. Every day I have a set list of things to do. And so I'm very strategic with how I spend my time, and I very much protect my time as well. So when people message me, I'll acknowledge the message and I'll respond in a time that works for me. I'm not ruled by my phone. I'm not, constantly responding to messages as and when they come. I make calls, when it's convenient for me. And so most people that know me know that the first time that they call, they probably won't get through to me. I'll always call back, but it may be, for example, when, the next day or whatever, during a time that I know that I'm not distracted and I can give it my time. So I'm very strategic about how I spend my time. So that when it's time to give to the children, I'm giving to the children. And that time isn't compromised. But at the same time, I protect my own time. And so I wake up early before they get up, and I have my time of devotion as well. And I get to shower undisturbed and all that jazz. When I need to have time for work, my children are very well trained. They know that's the time that they need to leave me alone. I give them specific activities in the garden to do, and so on, so that they're not, infringing upon that. And at the same time, I make sure that I make time for me, for things that I'm interested in. So everything has to be allocated. You have to be extremely deliberate about everything that you do as well. And that's, I think, how I've managed to do so. But I think Fry's really helpful as well, because he's very intentional about protecting my time. So if I'm like, I need space, he'll be like, okay, children, like, leave mom alone now, let's do this kind of thing. Because the woman is the thermostat of the home. I heard that recently, and I thought that was brilliant, and it's so true. And so it's very much that we are okay, and so my mental health and just my sense of feeling balanced and not feeling overwhelmed is so important, because it determines, a lot of other things. I hope that.
And it's not easy though. She makes it sound so easy. Just organize your time and just write everything. It's so. Effia is probably the most organized person I know. I mean, she has books with everything written down. She structures everything, but this is something that has taken a long time. Because it's when you have 3 children, you have a business and you're homeschooling and ministry. It's not easy.
That's a lot.
So and then on top of that, you have the moments of life that are unexpected. A child gets sick. Last the electricity just cut out. We only got it back literally an hour to 2 hours ago. So that means a whole. And so you have to factor in those things. So I think if you want to be an organized person, just have a realistic view that you have to have a plan, but don't beat yourself up if that plan doesn't work. And also don't up if it doesn't flow immediately. Be committed to it, right? Have a plan. After 2 weeks, don't say, okay, it's not working. Keep going and keep going and keep going. Eventually you'll see the fruit.
I think this phrase captures it quite well.
Like that.
Be rooted, but flexible.
And then you'll bear the fruit.
By the way, guys, the beautiful, beautiful banner on my channel was designed by Mr. Bayayi. So, you know, I hope Fijera Stevens, you're still in the chat. You're the one that like, oh, this is so beautiful, Bin Charon. So this is the man behind the beautiful banner on my channel. So thanks again, Mr. Farai. So if you want something similar, you know what to do. Just email me and we'll take it from there. So also, you know, we know that it's homeschool season right now. So they explain a lot when it comes to you know, homeschooling. We're gonna, yeah, and even the parenting bit. So I'll put the link of the channel in the chat. So please, guys, everyone here, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up with the Bayayi'S. Just do that right now and share with other parents out there that can also learn from Efia and Farai. So, Mr. Bayayi, I know, you know, you are brilliant with children, with the youth. You are doing an amazing job with our youth here. So for the one that, you know, watching us right now, you know, it happened that they got caught up in the, you know, in the wrong crowd and start, you know, smoking the wrong thing and all that. What do you have to you know, what advice do you have for them?
Wow, I mean that's a question that can be answered in so many different ways. But you know, if I was to try to condense everything into a sentence, is you know, the mass thought on any subject is not always the correct thought, and it's not always the most productive thought. Take, for example, when Effie and I got married, she was a virgin. And even then it was taboo. And it's more taboo now, like, what, you're a virgin? And who thinks that? It's the mass, it's the crowd, it's the majority. And there's a pressure on young people, an unbelievable pressure, which is sometimes, I think, underestimated by guardians and parents. You know, to wear certain clothes and to think in a certain way. And we're seeing it now, this whole cancel culture, which is ridiculous. A man, I think it's Jimmy Fallon, has just been pulled up for something he did 25 years ago. And no one complained 25 years ago. No one complained 20 years ago. But because the climate of the world and it's changing. But do you know what's happening? No one is standing up and saying, guys, that was 25 years ago. They want him to stand up and apologize. And so there's this pressure. If you hang around with people and they're all thinking a certain way, you will eventually think that way. If your circle of friends are all, you know, thinking about drugs and that kind of stuff, that's the way you're going to go. If your circle of friends don't have father figures in their life to speak sense into them, and so they're open to everything else, guess what? You're going to be open to everything else. And so though we may not blame you for what you've been through, though sometimes you don't even ask for the troubles that come your way, you do have your own mind. You do have, I saw someone write in the comment section, you do have greatness inside of you. I'm always telling the youth, you don't have to think about, when I get older, I'm going to be in a council flat and working for Sainsbury's or working for, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if that's all you're aiming for, if that's all you can see, then you need to break out your circle. You need to get into a group of people that see greater and beyond, because it's greatness and it's the reaching out for something beyond yourself and greater than you that breaks you out of that mold and thinking. And so you are going to come across drugs, you're going to come across pornography, people are going to ask you to do things with them and for them, hold guns and all this kind of stuff. And you have to ask yourself, is this who I want to be? Is the circle of people I have around me who I want to be? And as you develop that thought and you think things through, you're going to break away from the mass, and you may not always be popular for it. There are a lot of politicians and people out there that are very smart, But because they don't think like the majority, they're vilified. And that word vilified means they're made out to be either stupid or the enemy, or something is wrong with them. But there's nothing wrong with them. They just have their own opinion. One man said, I don't agree with this. And because the whole world thinks otherwise, that man then apologizes. I thought that you and I had free thought and free will, that we can decide what we want. You and I can disagree. That's fine. It's not a problem. It's when my freedom to think is challenged. So you have to. So ask yourself this question, young person: is your freedom to think for yourself being challenged? Are you the type of person, a group of people, and you think to yourself, you know what, I don't agree with that, but you don't say anything because you're afraid of the backlash? If you're that type of person, you're literally setting yourself up for a life where you're always following and never leading. Every single youth in our church, every single youth I've ever come across has it within them to lead, to open their own businesses, to think outside the box, to be creative. And it's just something that they need to realize within themselves before they are told what they're going to be, right? If you're from a certain postcode, then everyone from that area is going to be is a certain way. If you're from a certain background, then don't let anyone box you in. And so one of the greatest freedoms, is Christ. Christ is the greatest freedom. I've seen gang members with demons, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm just using that word flippantly. I mean, they would wake up in the middle of the night with a different voice, and their parents would call my previous pastor, and my other pastor friend would have to run down there and pray for them. I mean, madness. Come to contact with Christ and totally changed, to the point that other rival gang members would walk to them and say, you know what, there's something different about you, and we're not going to touch you, we're not going to leave you, we're going to leave you alone. I've seen people set free from pornography, from drugs, from gangs, from bad relationships, simply because they decided, I'm not going to think like the masses. I'm going to, Christ is going to save me, he's going to deliver me, and they give their lives to him, and everything changes. You cannot change a person until their heart is changed, and very, very little changes the heart like Christ. Okay, so I could say so much more, so much more. I mean, something I'm very passionate about, because I'm still like 21, and I'm still very, very much in line with you.
40 next
okay
year.
Just don't listen to that.
You wish, sir. Anyway, for the men out there, specifically, the Christian one or the God-fearing men out there, waiting for, God to direct them to the right woman, future wife. What advice do you have for those one in the the singleness season? What advice do you have for them? And the same goes to Afia for the ladies. So you go first, Mr. Bayayi.
Okay, in order to find the right person, and I know this may be cliche to some, but you have to be the right person. You cannot have, relationships. Relationships are not, shopping. You find something you like, you say, I don't really know about this, and you return it later on because it didn't satisfy your needs. That's not a relationship. That's shopping. So a lot of people are shopping for relationships. You have to look at yourself first. You want me to start again? You say rewind? Okay. Yeah, for some reason your audio is totally gone. I can't hear you, but I know what this means. It means rewind the thing, selector. Okay, so
yes, that's correct. That's the chopping bit. So we can hear that very, very well. That when it comes to relationship, it's not something you go and pick and choose and like, okay, and then you dump it back on the shelf. So can you go over that, please?
Yeah, sure. A relationship is about you. You determine the type of person you are going to attract. You attract what you are. And so if you work on yourself to be a better man, right, you are responsible, right? We think that a man means muscles and loads of conquests and what the young people call like a body count and all that kind of stuff. That's foolishness. A man is a man that is responsible, that can walk into a room and people know, hey, listen, that's a man right there, because there's something about him that says, you know what, if anyone was to come into my team or into my circle, they'll be well educated, they'll be well looked after, there's growth, because I'm going to add to this. I'm not looking for what I can get. I'm looking to add something to this thing. And so a lot of relationships don't work out, and because of this mindset. I want you to make me happy. I'm not going to change. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not going to apologize for anything. You make me happy. That's what I want you to do. And what happens is when the woman doesn't make you happy, man, you then say, this is not working. I'm going to move on to someone else who's going to make me happy. And the cycle goes on and on and on, because you're trying to satisfy yourself. And the other half is also trying to satisfy themselves. When a man says, I want to make you happy, it's not about me. I'm comfortable with who I am. I know who I am in Christ. I'm confident. I want to make you happy. Do you know what happens when you go through tough times? You're not looking for that person to satisfy you, because you're already satisfied. What you're looking for is, how can I make you feel better in this time? When that person begins to argue with you about different issues and points their finger in your face, and you this and you that, because you're secure as a man, because you know how you are, because you know your relationship with God, all of those words. Listen, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but what's the real issue here? I'm trying to help you. You see, you then put everything back into the other person and say, this is about you. That's how real relationships work. When you are focused on the other person, when you have the mindset that you don't make me happy, no one will ever make you happy. You have to be satisfied within yourself. This is why what Christ said is so powerful. Love others as you love yourself. You cannot love another person until you love yourself. Many of you have been raised in homes where there is no father, so you have trouble with authority, you have trouble relating to yourself. You never had another man say to you, hey, listen, you're a good man, you're going to be okay, keep going, son, and all that kind of stuff. And it plays out. So know yourself, get around some men that are men, get around some masculine men that can teach you responsibility, that can educate you, that can decide for you.
Sorry.
Okay, I don't know where I got to, but that's
Sorry,
pretty much.
yeah.
I'm a preacher, but work on yourself as priority. Sweet. What would you say to the ladies?
So I would say, okay, Fire already touched on it. I think it's important that the man has to be teachable. So you want a man who has good influences in his life. Other men, strong men of God, family men that he has relationships with, and you know that, okay, those are the types of people that are speaking into his life that he's learning from. Because if you're with someone and no one can tell them anything, you are in trouble.
Sorry, love. I just know that this comment is going to go away, and I want you to finish. But the life of King Wage, he just said a comment that the standards in America for people are so high. He said, in the States, due to society standards, I'd say it's hard to find someone, especially in the States, due to society standards. But, it just goes back to that point that the standards that people have is not for themselves. Think about that. I want this and I want that, I want that, I want this in you, but they don't expect that in themselves. When people are realistic and say, I'm a flawed human being, but I've got, this is what I can bring. And then the other person says the same thing, hey, it can work. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think it's important they're teachable. I actually remember when we were newly married, and you had a friend who I didn't approve of. I didn't I didn't approve of him. I just wasn't feeling him. And I remember actually this being something that I prayed about. I was very deliberate and intentional about praying that God would remove this friend, because it's important the kind of men that he's surrounding himself with. And over time that happens. And, lo and behold, this man is not actually married himself today. And so the types of influences that he has in his life are important. Is he teachable? Is he someone that's submitted under authority himself? Does he have a pastor? Does he have someone whose leadership he's following? So that if you have issues in your marriage, there is someone that can speak into his life, And at the second thing I would say is also being with someone who's God-fearing, because, you know, like I don't have to, before my husband is going to do certain things that are not how I would want him to behave as a husband. He fears God. Do you know what I mean? So he's, you know, let's take for example infidelity. You know, committing adultery. Besides not wanting to hurt me as his wife, he's also got to think about, you know, disobeying the God that he serves. And so there are two levels to it there. And so therefore I think it's important to have someone, a man that's God-fearing, because, you know, before he's trying to please his wife, he's also, more than anything else, he's trying to please the God that he serves. And so that cancels out a lot of problems.
I would also add, just for the ladies especially, don't rush into anything because of time. I make a lot of mistakes. I'm a certain age now, so whatever we don't apply that thinking in any other area of life, and this is one of the most significant things that anyone would ever make a decision to do so. And so I can tell you heartbreaking stories of people who like, look, I just need it to get married. They rushed into something only to find out it was a wrong person. And so please bear in mind, your life is much more than a relationship. It is more than that. For the believers out there, we know that there is no marriage in heaven. This is what we're living now is just an illustration of the church. It just serves as an illustration and a place to raise children in a certain way. But you are valuable beyond who you are with, right? And so as much as we desire it, I like food that I eat. You want to believe God, and you want to give it some time so that you don't end up with wrong choices.
That's very, very important, not to rush into, anything due to pressure, maybe from friends, from family members. Just stay focused, be patient, and at the right time it will happen if that's God's will for you. But in the meantime, just enjoy life, serve God. If you're a believer, serve God the best, serve people, and enjoy life, enjoy you. So so back to, for the people that just joined the stream, the
Okay. I think I need to let you know that we can't hear a word that you're saying. So I hope you're not asking a question. I can't hear anything at all.
Right. So what I'm gonna do, sorry, because of the echoing, I try to mute one person when I'm talking. So sorry, So right, what I was saying, I want you guys to give some advice to the married couples out there, because as we all know, or most of us, you guys been married for 15 good years now. So I'm sure you have a lot to share with newlywed people out there, or married people for a long time. You have something to share. And us singles, we are listening and we'll be learning as well. So what do you have to say? What advice do you have for us?
Our mic is
there you go.
Okay.
Yes, so you're good now. Sorry.
I say it's important as a woman to not speak when you are angry. And so because men are egos, and then what ends up happening is, you know, you can be right but wrong at the top of your voice. That's a saying that's always stuck with me. And so what you're saying is right, but the way in which you're communicating it, it's coming out disrespectful. And as long as he's feeling disrespected, he's not going to be responsive. He's not going to even be able to really hear what you're saying, because all that's being received is the tone of your voice. And so I would say it's important to wait until you calm down, and at least then you don't say anything that you regret, coming back and then having the conversation. I also think, though, that when you do have the conversation, it should be within the same day. The Bible talks about not letting the sun go down in your anger. And so, you know, trying to not let it fester and drag on, but just addressing it, dealing with it, nipping it in the bud within like a 24-hour period is really healthy. I think it's also important, you know, not to harbor things. So as you know, if there is something that you have an issue with, say it. Especially with women, we do this a lot, or we kind of think that they should know. Well, he doesn't know. He can't read your mind, you know. So tell him, you know, explain it to him. And so I think that's important, you know. If there are issues that you have, if there is something that's a problem, have that conversation, have it over a meal, you know, and that sort of thing. I also think it's important to laugh a lot, you know, to not take yourself too seriously, to just enjoy, you know, the simplest of things. Like today, for example, the electricity cuts in the house, so we didn't have anything, because to switch on the boiler, you need electricity, to switch on the cooker, to charge your phone, the computer, like nothing. We had nothing. And, you know, we just brought out a game of snakes and ladders, and we played, you know, that with the children. And, you know, we've just been able to have, you know, banter, you know, and that sort of thing, because there's been a build up of relationship. Right. So we're just a married couple, we're friends, because we've had many moments of laughter, enjoying each other's time, having conversations. And so if you are stuck in quarantine, it's not awkward, because you're friends, you enjoy each other's company. You you know, if you have the electricity right now and therefore there are no distractions, it's cool, because you're friends, you know, and you can roll with it. So yeah, I think those are the things that come to mind straight away.
I think very true, by the way, though. And I think also you have to have a realistic view of marriage. I grew up with all of the Disney movies, and guess what happened to all of the Disney movies? Happily ever after. My man is riding on the sunset, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to meet my Prince Charming or my princess, whatever. But life is not a Disney movie. It's you know. So if you have an unrealistic view of marriage when you enter into it, you're going to be disappointed, and that's going to bleed out in how you react and how you respond to certain things. And so, marriage has a lot of ups and a lot of downs. You're going to go through things together where there's loss or financial difficulties. So that's something outside of yourself, but you're also going to have clashes within yourself, because you are two different people from two different backgrounds. I always use this illustration about a husband coming from a family where he has 8 brothers and sisters. And so when he uses the toothpaste, he only uses a minute bit, because he understands something. I've got 8 other people, 7 other people behind me. Whereas his wife is from she's a single child, an only child. And so when she uses the toothpaste, she uses as much as she wants. So he sees that for the first time. Now they're married, and he flips out. You're wasting it. She feels like she's disrespected. They fight over it because it's within them. Right. And so you have to have a realistic view. I'm not going to fight you over toothpaste. I understand that you're from a different background. It's going to irk me. It's going to pick your battles. Yeah. But it's just one of those things. Do not get your parents involved in your personal issues. Yeah. Keep the mother-in-law, keep your mom out of it. This is between you and her. The minute you get other people involved in your personal squabbles, this is what's going to happen. You guys are going to make up, hey, listen, babe, I'm sorry. Oh, it's okay, you know, and you're gonna make up. But mum is still going to be vexed with her. Mum is still going to be vexed with him because, like, that's my baby. How dare you? And it's going to be so awkward at family barbecues and all that kind of stuff. So you want to try and keep your issues to yourselves. If you have someone that is spiritual, that is wise, that is above you, if you can't resolve it between the two of you, go to that person. Try your best to keep family out of it. All they need to know is that you're a team and you're solid.
Because I respect your marriage a lot more.
Yeah. When people involve their parents a lot in their marriage, the family tends to disrespect the marriage a lot more. You kind of see like you know, they feel comfortable in using derogative language. Is that the right word?
Derogatory.
About your spouse, because you've used that language when you were vexed and frustrated. Now you're over it. They're still using the same language. Oh, he's an idiot, and you can't say nothing because you're the one who brought that into the plate in the first place. And so you need to keep that stuff out of there. So be realistic. In other words, just Gloria. In other words, just know that marriage is not a bed of roses. It is not a walk in the park. It is not happily ever after. It is not Disney. It's dirty. It's ups and downs. It's bruises. It's fights. It's everything. But you come out the other end glistening and full of hope and mature. I was very immature when I first got married. A lot of issues that need to get worked out. But by the grace of God and because of her patience, by the grace of God, because of her patience, we kind of so be realistic, keep people out of it, and be in it for the long term. So don't think I'm in it until I get offended. Think I'm in it for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah, so divorce is not an option.
It's not an option.
Oh no,
it's not in our vocabulary. It's not in our mindset. It's not an option. So therefore, when something is removed as an option, the only other avenue or route is success. So and I think as well, you know, Fry talked about coming from different backgrounds. Fry's Zimbabwean, I'm Ghanaian.
You're from Ghana?
British born Ghanaian. But what's it called? But Christ comes first, and so in our household, in our marriage, our primary culture is Christian culture, and we filter everything through that. And then, of course, you know, we add the Zim spice and the Ghanaian spice and stuff. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and just going back, I just want to add this. Just going back to the whole thing about realistic in marriage. Things do happen, and there's some cases that you do need to get out. Right. And so you know, it's just a reality of life. Again, because you're being realistic about marriage, you don't beat yourself up on that and say, oh well, you know, if I was just a stronger Christian, if I was no. Things happen. It's life. We go through those hurdles and we keep moving on, and God is with us. We're not defined by who we're with. We're defined by who we belong to, and that's only upward.
Wow, that's powerful. When God is, you know, at the center, everything works perfectly. Though, you know, you'll be going through certain challenges when it comes to, you know, life issues. You know that God is the one that is holding these two people together, and surely it will work. And like you said, Efia, divorce is not what? Good. So, right, guys, if you have any question for the Bayayi'S, please put it in the chat. If not, we have let's say 2 minutes to finish. So if anyone has a question for the Bayayi'S, please put it in the chat. And you know, it's been so great having you both here. So voilà, c'est la fin de cette live. Je suis vraiment contente d'avoir les Bayayi'S avec moi ce soir, et ils ont partagé beaucoup de choses avec nous. Et comme j'ai mentionné au début, ils sont chrétiens, donc Dieu est au milieu de ce mariage. Donc, c'est ce qui les aide plus. Ils ont partagé aussi comment vous pouvez aider vos enfants à la maison, parce que tout se passe en ligne maintenant. Donc, je vais mettre le lien dans le chat. Comme ça, vous pouvez aller vous abonner à leur chaîne et puis apprendre plus. So, guys, let me quickly put this right. I think you guys have, is it a question or an affirmation?
When you met, did you see them as someone you can be together long term, or is it something that came with years in the marriage? Wow, what a great question. I, I, no one's ever asked me anything like that, so I can only speak for myself. I don't know what you're on to be.
Okay.
But when I first got saved, because of my past, I wasn't even thinking marriage at all, at all. I actually thought that God was going to keep me single for the next 10, 15 years. And so my focus was purely, I just want to serve God. I just want to serve God. And I threw myself into the church, and I was just happy just to be. But then obviously because of the relationship between my sister and Effia, we got to know each other. And then someone told me, oh yeah, by the way, Effia likes you. Now, whenever someone tells you that, you start to look at the person differently. So here I am, I'm trying to focus, Jesus, 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 Effia. So hello. And so
That's a
we,
lie. Okay, continue. That's a lie, Pastor.
okay, we shall continue. So what happened was I started to try to forge a friendship with her in church. She was always at morning prayer, so I would go to morning prayer, and she was on outreach, I was on outreach, and we formed a relationship. And then I had a conversation with my pastor, and the whole story came out, and I realized I only like her or only interested in her because of what that person said. And my pastor said, you know what, that's witchcraft. That person should have never said that at all. And so I took a major step back. I stopped talking to her, stopped going to morning prayer at the time that she was going, all that kind of stuff. But within 3 months of me doing that, I realized, you know what, because Effia did not flinch. Folks, I'll tell you something. She didn't even like, why aren't you? She was like, all right. And she just moved on with her life. Like it was nothing. And so I was like, okay. And so I started to feel that. And I realized I actually like this girl. It was at that point when I broke away from our friendship, which we weren't even dating or anything, that I realized this is the woman I want to spend the rest of my life with. It's long term, because I was a born again believer at that point, and I understood something. If I'm going to go into a relationship, the end goal is marriage. I'm not testing the ground. I'm not seeing are we compatible in terms of sex and all that kind of stuff. I love the way you love people. I love the way you love Christ. I love your relationship with God. I love how you radiate, the love of Christ. And that's something I want. Every time someone raised their hand to receive Christ, Effie was always there at the altar to pray with them. She just loved people. And that's what attracted me. And so immediately I was like, yeah, I want to spend the rest of my life with this person. What was your story?
Long term. Did I think that? Yeah, I did. I think one of the things in terms of dating, the word dating comes, this I heard this was it comes from the word data. So as in you're collecting data on the person, you're doing your research to see their compatibility.
Did you want to spend the rest
I'm answering the question. So when we were dating, I was being very intentional, I was being very deliberate in, I guess, studying his behaviors and that type of thing. So yes, through that process of collecting the data.
What data did you collect?
I was like, yeah, I can see myself.
No, but the data though.
I can see myself like spending the rest of my life with him. But okay. The point I'm making is that period of dating, that courtship period is very important. Like it's not just about taking pictures for Instagram, and that type of thing. It's about you really researching, studying that person, observing how they are in certain circumstances. What are their friends like? What are their, what's it called? What's their family dynamic like? What is his relationship like with his mum? That's a really big indication of what is going to be like with you. All of those things, like use that time wisely. That's what I'd say. So yeah.
So
I'll answer the question.
Right, guys, I'm sure we all been blessed listening to the Bayayi'S tonight. The young one, the single ones, the married one, all of us. So guys, thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. Great stream. And I will see you guys very, very soon. I'll be having Effia back on again, and Mr. Farai, as well, but separately. So guys, Make sure you go and subscribe to the channel and keep up with the Bayayi'S. Thanks everyone for joining, and enjoy your evening. I'll see you all tomorrow. God bless. Bye-bye.